Good afternoon yet? Yes, good afternoon. Green buildings, I just want to just make a few comments. Green buildings, green cleaning products is a new issue for most people. But this issue was actually very new to me as a newly, let me take you back to the human side for a minute. As a newly represented RTM member in office 2 months in early 2002, when the school in my district called a meeting with the Board of Ed and superintendents and town officials because their children were extremely sick. Started out 10 children stayed home the next day for 20, 60, went up to 160 students who couldn't go to school because they were so sick. This is the same school that I actually attended as a child and that my son attended. My son had a severe mold allergy when he attended that school. He was completely healthy until he started going to school. And as a young mother, I had no idea why he was sick. He was coughing and he couldn't, constantly coughing. He would not stop coughing. And I would bring him to the doctors and they really didn't know what to do. And they gave us Dimetap and all kinds of medicines until a couple of years later they did a test and said he had a severe mold allergy. No one in my family had a mold allergy. I didn't even know what a mold allergy was. And why I didn't think of it at the time is my child sat in the lunchroom with garbage pails all around the room as rainwater just fell into the building because it was a very popular thing to do in communities where they would just defer maintenance because they had to cut their budgets. Meanwhile, children and staff were sick. Joellen Lawson was a teacher in that building. And when Joellen Lawson left the building, really no one knew why she left. She just left. No one talked about that she might have been sick. So as a new representative, my son being in middle school at the time, I sat in a room in a gymnasium filled with 300 parents crying, so dramatically affected that their children were sick, really sick. And as Senator McKinney talked about, he was a newly represented senator. He was at the meeting. We actually had a parent whose child had seizures from this event and will have lifelong health issues because of it. So to me, it brought home the impact of how an unhealthy school could have such a dramatic effect. And we all sort of had to become experts on indoor air quality. We never even heard of it until that night. We spent, as a new RTM member representing that district, I spent over 200 nights that 1 year alone at meetings trying to fight for those people in that community because no one wanted to do anything about it. They didn't want to even acknowledge the issue. McKinley School was eventually the first school closed in the nation. Think about that, in the entire nation due to poor indoor air quality. We had news outlets from around the country surrounding this one little school because the staff and the students were sick. And I have to say that it had a profound effect on all of our lives, but most notably on Joellen Lawson's life, and also Charlotte Leslie, who was the PTA president at the time. Their lives completely changed, and they spearheaded this entire process. We wouldn't even be here right now if it wasn't for this one little school and this one little lady who's actually got a really tough exterior and who's a fighter because she could have went home and she could have just said, I'm sick and I don't need to worry about anyone else. But she didn't. And she fought really hard because it's hard for her to work hard because she's not well. And she fights hard every day for the students and for the parents and for the staff who attend the schools in Connecticut. And I think, I'm really proud to even know Joellen. And so now we start to talk about cleaning products, which, let's face it, 10 years ago we've never been talking about cleaning products. So the cost effectiveness, the new legislation, we're going back from early 1999, 2000, and now here we are in 2011. And we've moved to a point where we are talking about the Green School Clean Law that gave districts 2 years ago to use up existing supplies of cleaning the products before environmentally preferable cleaning products would be required. Government procurement agencies at all levels of government, federal, state, local, and throughout the country have already demonstrated that the transition from toxic cleaners to safer alternatives can be done at no additional cost. And that, as someone mentioned earlier, is a huge issue because in these economic times, people are very concerned about the cost. And they maybe forget, because the schools and people being so dramatically impacted, they forget how important these things are. So with no cost impact, and maybe even savings in many cases, this is a big, big deal. In 2009, the Nonpartisan Office of Fiscal Analysis determined that the requirements of this law would be cost neutral and could save money. In March of 2010, the New York City Office of the General Services posted a report on the cost benefits of using certified cleaning products that explained that, in fact, our anecdotal evidence has shown that green cleaning products cost the same or less and work as effectively as their traditional counterparts. In the fall of 2009, Connecticut Department of Administrative Services became part of a 5-state contract along with New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, with vendors for clean green products and supplies at discounted rates. The state purchasers who negotiated this contract were inspired to do so by the clean green laws in New York and Connecticut. Think about that. Connecticut is one of the very leaders in all of us even being here having this conversation. And think about how wonderful and how important this is, that we really are saving lives by doing all of this. And how the students and the staff back in early 2000 and how Joellen's lives would be different if we had done this before. So kudos to everyone for being here, because this is a dramatic and important issue, and I'm glad to be at help in any way I can, because this has touched me personally, and it is something very dear to my heart. Thank you.